Okay, so with these little mini lectures based on the readings for the week, I'm really going to focus on the impact on occupational performance. So the clinical conditions, you really need to do your readings and do your worksheets to understand the mechanics of the condition. And what we together are going to focus on is the impact on occupational performance. Now, what is occupational performance? This is one of the most important things to understand, and you'll learn this in all of your classes. And if you go to your OTPF, page 80, you'll see a definition. And the definition in the OTPF specifically says the accomplishment of selected occupation resulting from the dynamic transaction among the client, their context, and the occupation. Now, what does this mean? This is our ability to choose and organize and satisfactorily perform meaningful occupation. What are occupations? These are our everyday personalized activities, the things that are meaningful to us. So if you go to page 30, you'll see a very comprehensive list of occupations that we might perform in every single day, every single moment. And it's our ability to perform these meaningful occupations that are culturally defined, age appropriate, that there are things that we enjoy. They are our ability to contribute to social and the economic fabric of the community. Everything that puts meaning into our life, that is occupation. So we're really going to focus on how these clinical conditions impact occupational performance. Because remember, we don't treat the condition, we treat the human that happens to have this condition. And you will work with clients who have multiple of these conditions within the same package. So how does burns impact occupational performance? So really big picture, we all have sustained some level of a burn. If it's touching a hot stove or a hot pan, a hot iron, hot water hitting our hands, hot oil while we're cooking, a sunburn. So these are some of those more superficial burns, but you can understand how it impacts our ability to perform occupational occupations. If anyone's ever had a sunburn and it's bad enough that it's hard to put clothes on, or I had a sunburn once that was so bad that I couldn't go to yoga because it was on my front and I couldn't lay on my stomach. So I couldn't perform that meaningful occupation of going to yoga. Again, I once had literally pulled a hot pan out of the oven, put it on the stove, and then took the hot glove off, or the mitt off, and then did something and promptly turned around and put my hand right on the handle and got a big blister in the middle of my palm. So again, that superficial burn really impacted my occupational performance because it was really challenging for me to continue cooking. It was really hard for me to perform basic activities of daily living, ADLs, such as brushing my teeth, because it was on my dominant hand right in the middle of my palm, so it was very painful. So those are those superficial burns, and those impact occupational performance. And now you have these deeper burns, deep partial thickness, full thickness. If you don't understand what that terminology is, make sure you go back and do your readings. These ones are the ones that most impact our occupational performance, have the most impact on occupational performance. And we say that because these ones go deeper. Oftentimes they're a larger part of the body. There's more surface area that's impacted, and there's increase of risk of contractures, and so on. So these deeper burns, they impact joint mobility. They can impact, so that joint mobility, meaning your active range of motion, your ability to actively move your joints, your ability to actively move your joints, that range of motion can impact your overall strength. It can have an impact on your endurance. There's can be pain involved. So if you think about all of that and how that impacts your ability to get dressed in the morning, how it impacts your ability to drive a car, pick up your child, go to school. If you think about those deeper burns where they have more surface area, how does that impact one's self-image? So now if we think about social participation, being visiting with friends, going out into the community to the grocery store, how does that impact our client? There can be a fair amount of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which or syndrome, which is another condition that we will be visiting later on in the semester. So if you think about burns, and now we add that post-traumatic stress on top of it, that PTSD, and the fear that's behind it, fear of pain, fear of burns happening again. So maybe that limits participation in activities that they enjoyed before, such as cooking. Maybe they have a gas stove at home, and because of the PTSD or their anxiety or overall fear, now they're fearful of going and cooking at the gas stove, and now they're not able to participate in that meaningful occupation. How can burns impact relationships? Going back to self-image, mental health, is there an increased burden on a caregiver, such as a spouse or a parent or a child or a friend group? How does that then impact the relationships? And that going back to social participation and engaging in meaningful relationships. How do burns have that impact on that occupational performance? So you can see, big picture, burns are not just from a physical perspective impacting occupational performance, but from a mental health perspective, from an emotional perspective, from a psychosocial perspective. So it's more than just physical, it's the whole human. And remember, as an occupational therapy assistant, we are treating the human as a whole. So when we create our treatment plans to work with somebody who has a burn, because we're not treating the burn, we're treating the person who happens to have a burn, we need to really look at the whole picture of who this person is and craft a meaningful treatment plan to work with them in conjunction with what is meaningful to them. So I hope that was helpful. And if you have any other questions, be sure to reach out, and be sure to do your readings to understand fully understand what a burn is.